Hi everyone, welcome to our channel, Rebecca, Stu, and the Crew. I'm Rebecca. Today is Thursday, so that means it's time for a fall DIY using mainly items from the Dollar Tree. We're going to make these wood slice pumpkins, and they are so fun. So let's go over our supplies first. From the Dollar Tree, we're going to be using some of these fall rub-on transfers. I'll use these two. They have two others though that you can purchase. They have one that says Happy Fall, Y'all, and pumpkin spice and everything nice. They also are going to be using some fall ribbon or twine. We'll need some fall raffia, some of the berry garland, and some of the laser cut KRAFT icons. We're going to use the leaves. We'll need some fall floral. They have a whole bunch of different kinds out right now that you can choose to use in this project. We'll use a few of these tower blocks as our stands, and then the wooden dowels will be our stems. We're also going to use some Mod Podge to seal it. And then we'll need some paint brushes, and little cups to mix paint in. You'll need some hot glue, scissors, and possibly some sandpaper and some pet nail clippers to cut the dowels. From Hobby Lobby, the only thing we're going to be using today will be the wood slices. They have them in round and oval in these small bags, and you can get them for 40% off. We're going to use 4 pieces. So let's get crafty. So the first thing we're going to do is just rub the wood pieces off with some paper towel to make sure that they're clean and there's no dirt left behind. And taking a pencil, we're just going to trace around that last ring that you can see on your wood slice. And this will make sure that you don't cover the whole thing with paint, that you have a nice even circle with your paint, and you want to just make sure that you can still see the bark and a little bit of that natural wood from behind. So now taking some of this moss colored green paint and a little bit of white paint, I'm just going to mix that to create this light green. And then I'm going to paint the large wood slice with the light green paint. Now, the first thing I did is I went around the whole entire border with the paintbrush first, just to make sure I had a nice, straight, even line. And then I continued to paint the wood slice until I had the whole center covered. And the way I thought it looked the best was to keep painting it in the circular pattern to follow the wood grain and the rings of the wood slice. It just helps the wood grain kind of shine through a little bit, and that natural bit of the wood just kind of gives it a little bit more charm and, like, you know, detail to the wood slice. I like being able to see the wood grain. If you don't, you can add another layer of paint, but I thought one layer was enough. Now for the smaller one, I'm just going to use that moss green paint and paint that around here, so I have 2 like coordinating colors for these pumpkins. And I paint this one the same way I did the other one in the circular pattern to help the wood grain shine through. So since I'm doing 2 different ones, I'm going to set this aside and let it air dry for about 20 minutes. And then I'm going to paint the second set a different color. So for the larger one here, I'm going to paint with the white chalk paint. And for the small one, you could just add a little bit of black paint to your white paint to create gray, or I just had some gray paint on hand, so I chose to just use that. But you can paint these any color you wish. I just thought they looked nice with the rub-on transfers in this color. And then we'll let those dry. So while those are drying, we're going to paint these laser cut KRAFT icons. We're just going to use the maple leaves. I ended up only using one of these. I painted one white and one black, and then I ended up taking the white one and adding a little bit of dark orange to it to go with the one pumpkin, and I didn't end up using the other one. So then we're going to paint some dowel rods for our stems. I am going to do a couple of them black and a couple of them white. Just depends on how big you want your stems, how many dowels you'll need. So I just painted a few to make sure I would have enough and wouldn't have to go back and paint them, but I did have some extra. So now using those dog nail clippers, as you can see, they cut right through these dowels so easily. It is a great way to cut these. So I highly recommend purchasing a pair of those from the Dollar Tree. You want to cut your stems just various lengths. Now this part's optional. You can take an emery board or some sandpaper and just sand the top edge of the dowel in an angle just to help give your stem a little bit more added detail. You could skip this step, it's not necessary. So now I'm going to take 3 pieces of the dowel and glue those together of varying lengths. And this will be for the larger pumpkin, and then for the smaller pumpkin, I just used 1 piece of dowel. And then I did the exact same thing for the black dowels that I painted. I did 1 with 3 and glued it together, and then just left 1 small piece for the other pumpkin. So now what I'm going to do is decide where I'm going to glue these pumpkins together, and then mark that off with a pencil line just to make sure that when I put the rub-on transfer on the pumpkin here, that I don't put it too far over to one side and then the picture's all messed up or being covered. So I wanted my picture to be on both of the pumpkins, not just on one. If you're doing one large pumpkin, you can just leave this together if you like. But since I wanted my pictures to be on both of them, I needed to cut the words and the pictures apart. So once you have them all cut apart, you just want to decide where you're going to want those on your wood slices, and then peel that backing off and then attach it to your wood slice. Once you lay it down, it has a little bit of a stickiness to it, so you can push down on it to help hold it in place. But it's not a permanent hold there, but you do want to make sure that you only put it down one time. You don't want to keep lifting it back up. You can adjust it like one time, but that's about it. And then rub over top of that with a dowel rod or a popsicle stick, the end of a pencil, really anything. And as you can see, it starts to change color as you rub over the top of it with the dowel rod. And that's how you know that it is coming off of that backing and sticking to whatever it is you're putting it on. Now, if you go to lift it up and you notice all of it hasn't stuck down, don't panic. Just lay the film back down and go over it again until you know you have the whole thing stuck to whatever you're putting it on. And you want to peel that backing off easily, just don't rip it off, go slow. And this is the first part done. Then I went ahead and put the leaves on up here at the top and the word hello. Here's what it looks like so far. And then for the smaller one, I added another piece of the leaves and then layered the word autumn on top. So you do want to make sure that you allow that paint to dry. If it's a little bit wet, it makes it a little bit difficult for those rub-on transfers to stick. So now I just make sure that I have it lined up where I want it and then attach it with some hot glue. You want to make sure when you're putting your 2 wood slices together that the bottoms line up so that they can stand up. So depending on how thick the wood is, sometimes they'll stand up on their own, or you might have to use those tower blocks on the back to help them stand. So now I had a lot of bark on these 2 pieces, so I decided to glue the stem to the front instead of the very top of the pumpkins, as you can see, and then the other pumpkins I'll do them a little bit differently. Now I'm going to take 2 pieces of different color twine or raffia, I'm sorry, and then just wrap that around my fingers a few times, bunch it up in the center, and then take another piece of raffia and just wrap that around the center, and then attach that in the back with some hot glue. And then trim off any little excess pieces and then just fluff up the loops of your bow. And I did make 2 bows, so I would have one for each pumpkin. Now I'm going to take one of those leftover dowel rods and some of that berry garland that's on the wire from the Dollar Tree, and I want to wrap that around the dowel rod to give it a really nice curl. Once I have it curled all the way around the dowel, I just slide the dowel right out. And then you can stretch out the curls a little bit. And then all I did was bend it in the center, and then I lay it on top of the pumpkins. I don't glue anything down yet. I kind of play around a little bit with like the words and then the bows and the garland. I just move them around until I have them where I like them, and then I glue them down. I added some more hot glue at the bottom just to make sure that berry garland stayed where I wanted it to be. And then I glue the bows on. Now for the smaller pumpkin, I took that berry garland and I actually wrapped it around the stem and then glued it on. And then attached the bow to the front. So I ended up putting stands on the back of both of the pumpkins that I made. This one didn't want to stand up on its own, so I did have to add the stand to the back. And then there's that laser cut leaf that I added to the top. So for this one, I just took those tower blocks and I put 2 together and I glued those to the large pumpkin, and that helped it to stand. And I glued this one on horizontally just because these were a little bit heavier and needed a little bit more of a wider base to help it stand up. The other ones that I made, they would stand up on their own, but I still added the stand to the back just to make them a little bit more steady. So that's the first one all done. So now we'll use the Grateful, Thankful, Blessed rub-on transfer. And then for this one, I had some leftover rub-on transfers that Dollar Tree sells all throughout the year. They have some with like pineapples, succulents. They have like these eucalyptus leaves. So I ended up having some leftover eucalyptus leaves, which I thought would look really pretty on this. It just matched with the green, and so I added that to this rub-on transfer. So that's where the leaves came from. These are not part of the fall collection that you can purchase right now, but they do have them at the Dollar Tree if you can find them. They restock those rub-on transfers pretty often. So once you have all the rub-on transfers on, you'll just want to glue those 2 wood slices together like we did with the last one. And then we'll glue our stems on. So again, for this one, I didn't have as much bark around the outside of these wood slices, so I went ahead and I glued the stems to the very top of the pumpkins. It just looked better this way for this set. And then I had some of this fall floral. They have it in a bunch of different colors. They have dark brown, a light tan with a little bit of brown, this light like off-white with a little bit of hint of green and yellow. So I chose to use this. I thought it looked really pretty with the green. And I'm just going to glue some right underneath of the stems. And then I'm going to wrap the ribbon in an X pattern around my fingers and then tie it off with either ribbon or twine in the center. As you can see, my cat, every time I work with ribbon, he comes to help. As you can see, these are just very simple bows. You just wrap them around your fingers and then tie them off in the center. We did the exact same thing with the raffia bow. So I tied this one off with the brown twine, and then I cut off that excess twine. I just like the two-tone of the brown together, which is why I chose to use the twine instead of the brown ribbon to tie it off in the middle. And I made 2 bows as well for this one. So then I attached the bows right underneath of the stem, and then I ended up adding some more of the floral to the large pumpkin. So for this piece, I wanted it to stay down around the side of the wood slice, so I just added a little dot of hot glue on the bark, and then I held the floral down in place until the glue dried so it would stay where I wanted it to be. And here are the blocks that I put on the back of this one to help it stand. Again, this one stood on its own. I just wanted to show you guys how to do that. And then I sealed the whole thing off with Mod Podge, and I did the same thing with the other one. I just want those rub-on transfers to have a nice seal over top of them, and it helped add a little bit of shine to the front of the pumpkins as well. So here's this one all done, and here's both of them together. Super fun and easy. I really love how they turned out. If you enjoyed this video, please check out some of our other videos that we've posted. We've done a few different ones already this year. We post them every single Thursday. I try to always use mainly items from the Dollar Tree. Here are some that we made last year. And then every single Friday, we post a new video as well. And these are usually geared towards what is new for the week at the Dollar Tree. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. And then check back tomorrow on Friday to see what is new this week at the Dollar Tree in that video. And here's those other videos from our channel you might also enjoy. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.